Well, I think maybe we'll have a little fun with this to start, right? Can you clearly see out your window?
All right, let's talk about windows. Windows, I mean, they keep the heat in, they keep the cold out. They're really important for your house and sealing up those gaps and everything. What should people look at when they are questioning whether or not it's time to replace their windows?
Yeah, great question. Well, I think maybe we'll have a little fun with this to start, right? Can you clearly see out your window? And at first, okay, maybe a little more jokingly, but past just keeping the windows clean. In all honesty, that's a great question to start with. That you as any homeowner can do. A lot of times in more modern day windows, we don't see a lot of the older styles anymore. But they're all built with 2 and or 3 panes of glass with gases trapped between them to help achieve, as you mentioned, keeping heat out and heat in or cool, etc. So if you're starting to see things frost up, oftentimes the seal around the window is going to start to get old and decay. And so you might see some frosting in the center of the window, or some moisture appearing to start building up in the corners, typically in the bottom corners, right? Because moisture is going to wind up finding its way down. So these are things we're all the time looking for in our 25-point inspections. But as a casual observation, if you're not sure, kind of curious, windows feel a little drafty. Do the walls around them feel cold? Maybe they weren't fully insulated when they were installed, which is required. When we install windows, if things like that are missing, to bring things up to code. There's just so many facets that get into why windows need replaced. Other obvious ones, obviously, if it's broken. But you might say, well, is the window broken or just the glass broken? Maybe there's some replacement parts, just like going to get your car fixed at the car dealership. And many leading manufacturers of windows do replacement parts all the time. So, you may not necessarily need a full window replacement. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
What about people that have homes are made of all kinds of different materials, brick, siding, things like that? How would you hang a window in, say, a brick home?
Great questions. We always like to break things down simple. Like when you have a pre-existing envelope, let's say, that cannot change in size, right, without a lot of work, we would then gravitate in a group set of windows we call replacement windows, right? When we get into other situations, which often happen when we see like remodels and complete exterior changes, will oftentimes help opt to going to new construction windows, which just present a little bit different envelope of the window on the outside, and how we can drive that interface can help save on different decisions around trimming around the windows versus channeling around the windows, running different features to keep water diverted out and away. So we classify a lot of times replacement or new construction style. And then, where do we go to drive the right interface on the outside? And then also, will it affect what we see on the inside? Sometimes water rots can affect the trim on interior, or quite frankly, sometimes the interior just has to get addressed based on how the windows were installed. And if, they come out, is the trim going to come out safely and be able to be repurposed? Some window installers will not address that. They literally will just focus on the window only. So for me, if you're thinking about talking to window installers, ask questions. What type of window am I being considered for, and then specifically, what's the approach and what comes with it? Just the window, or are you going to help handle everything else that envelopes that window? Ensure you get a great outcome for your home.
Right, the trim, the insulation. I think those are things that, if you didn't know about them, you wouldn't think to ask.
Yeah, you're right. And then there's that whole other tail end of safety as it relates to windows. Sleeping rooms require different sizes depending on their location in the home, first or second story. Impact glass, things are too close to an entryway, or in some cases in bathrooms. If a window's too close to a bathtub, there are specific distances. Code requirements for windows are fairly complex. So sometimes, we need to be double checking a lot of details around them to ensure we're putting the right solution in play. And then, past that, then the manufacturing and, what product to select. Some brands are more known for, recognized for their performance. There's a lot of great products on the market. I think that's something that I've been pleased for us, right? We haven't tailored necessarily to some of the leading brand names, but very reliable brand names that perform at and above the more recognized brands, and then the warranties that come with them, and ensure that it's still exceeding customer need. So I love playing in that space, relatively local manufacturers that, are very passionate about getting those kind of solutions and helping people.